It's an interesting saying, personal responsibility. It suggests that you're alone in how you respond and what your actions mean and how they affect people and yourself. It's all about the personal, the subjective. At the moment, the federal government and a lot of state governments are using this as an excuse for not stepping up with mandatory mask wearing and various mandatory behaviours that they've been using for 2 years now. And I find it interesting. There's a there's a concept in psychology, intersubjectivity, or the intersubjective. Language is intersubjective because it is something we create together, we share together, that we recreate together. Or I think there's a thing that comes out of a lot of New Age and psychotherapy about co-creation, which is also about this shared space that we all participate in. Shared space. It's funny that we call it space. I guess that's kind of a kinesthetic way of thinking about it, because proprioception is our perception of space in our bodies and in combination with sight around us. So intersubjective is, it lives in our language and our imagination, the way that language shapes our thinking and imagination and our feelings. So I'm struggling with this idea, because the reality is that there's another kind of shared experience that we have when an activity is often presented as a solo experience when actually it is a communal experience. Smoking is something which people have all used to say was an individual experience, when actually the fumes from it are shared by everyone in your immediate vicinity. And someone said something cool today about on the project, actually Lisa Wilkinson said that the metaphor used by Prime Minister Morrison was the slip slop slap thing, that you are responsible for your own sunburn and whether or not you wear that. And she put forward something rather brilliant, is because, slip slop slap sunburn is a personal experience because you're the only one who is sunburned. Now, your whining about it may affect your relationships, but your actions, your choice, does not really affect the health of anyone else. Whereas wearing a mask and smoking a cigarette and a whole variety of activities, like even wearing a seatbelt, which we think of as being you're wearing the seatbelt in particular, that is personal, but then we find out that someone else may get hit. If you have an accident and you hit a tree, you're going to affect the tree, and your own health affects your family. If you have an accident and the seatbelt doesn't save your life because you weren't wearing it, there's a whole range of things where we find that a lot of people would prefer to think in terms of individuality and independence rather than interdependence. And it seems to me, as I listen to languages, a whole variety of languages that people use in their own language, when I say each individual has their own language, which they have to modify and shape in order to get a message across into another person. And that's where that intersubjective comes from. We are interdependent, And the job of a government in a society is to look at the big picture, to make decisions that are in that interpersonal, intersubjective, interdependent reality that we actually all live in. And when you have ideologies on either side, because that in between space, that interdependent place, does not annihilate the individual. What happened with various expressions of socialism and communism over the last 150 years was to think that the shared social experience annihilates the individual experience. And then their encounter to that was the liberal idea in its original meaning, which was to liberate the individual, going back into the 19th century when liberalism was against the monarchy. And not just against socialism, which it's against authoritarianism. We have this experience of the individual annihilating, like Margaret Thatcher, there is no such thing as society. This whole way of thinking, and that challenge for this intersubjectivity, this interdependence, is to recognize that you are both an individual and a social animal. We are both unique in and of ourselves, but we live in an ecology, a social ecology, a social psychic ecology. And when decisions are being made, the government's role is to defend the individual and the social system, and sometimes remind the individuals that they are interdependent, that their actions affect other people, and that when they are responsible, their responsibility is about, even the word responsibility, you take an action, there is a consequence. So I know this is kind of meandering, but I'm working it out as I go along. I'm not sure. I think I'm for mandatory behaviours because, as one of the great memes I saw recently showed, what would happen if all of the traffic laws were taken down and all that was left was you doing whatever the fuck you like on the roads? It'd be a crash, or a lot of people would die, and we would be back. There's never been a time when the roads went unruled. There's no such thing, because it is all about that interdependence. What you do on the roads affects other people. So, what we're doing at the moment is affecting the whole structure of our society. And so we need to be very careful about freedoms and how they are explored. But I do think, and I think this is going to be a long-term experience, what we do with COVID and other pandemics that are likely to follow, and how we balance those individual rights with the social responsibility. Don't know if I've come to a conclusion. I'm still working it out, but I thought I'd share this anyway. Bye.